Sheepshead Bay. One-man operation. It was me, my partner. My partner handled all the business end. I handled all the art.
Okay.
I would get a couple of times a month people coming in, oh, I'm a sign painter. Lay a brush down. The second they pick it up, you know automatically, just from the way they're holding it, it just, all right, don't waste my time, get out of here. A couple of times I had people that, knew what they were doing, they were just too slow. I based that business on speed.
Okay.
So the name of the shop was called Quick Signs.
Yeah.
I called it Quick Signs because very early on, the way I started the business was my partner and he would go out, I made flyers, he would go out, drum up business and say, I'll take your order, you'll have your signs the next day, which was unheard of in the 80s. Yeah. If you place an order for your business, you might get your paper signs 2-3 weeks later. Okay. That's just the nature of the way it was. Yeah. The fact that you would have your signs the next day and delivered to you I was stealing from everybody. Yeah. And a lot of the people knew my work because I had worked at other sign shops, and in South Brooklyn, I had it on lock. That's awesome. So,
you were also kind of competing against vinyl as well, right?
Yeah,
that was the time period in which.
Yeah. Not many shops had a plotter yet, and the ones that did, they had a machine, it's called the Gerber 4B, which didn't have a computer, it wasn't a PC. It was a steel unit that had a little LCD display. It held like 8 fonts, and it was a $16,000 machine. In the 80s, it was a lot of money. Yeah. So, but as PCs and you could get a 24-inch plotter, became more affordable. I had to have one because it was signs that I needed to do just to compete and stay in business. You got to have it.
So you're playing both sides.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the bulk of the work I did, 80% or more, was hand-painted paper signs. Yeah. I had a 4-foot by 16-foot drafting table. I'd lay paper out and just nonstop all day long painting. Anyway, to get back on track. So Matt comes into my shop one day, and he's got black slacks on, white button-down shirt, tie.
Looking good.
He was working as a waiter at an Italian restaurant a few blocks away. So he was going to work in his waiter.
Oh, okay.
So immediately, right off the bat, I knew he wasn't a New York kid. He was like 20 years old at the time. So you could tell from his attitude, he just wasn't from here. He was just nice, like a nice guy. Yeah. So he says, would you be interested in teaching me? Oh, because I would normally not even entertain it, but because of his demeanor, just something about it, I said, show me your work if you have, So he came in the next day, and he had, like a drawing pad, and I took one look at it, knew he was talented, knew that he had some type of graffiti background. So I asked him, I was like, you write graffiti? He's like, no, because obviously it's the wrong thing to say. So I pull out a marker and I start taking tags. And he's like, wow. Anyway, so exactly when I agreed to take him on as my apprentice, I wanted to do it the way it was done for me. Okay,
just right to it.
Yes, he said, I'll sweep your floors, I'll throw out your garbage, I'll do whatever. I was like, you don't have to do any of that. Just do whatever it is I tell you to do, and be here to do it. Every single day he would show up.
Early?
I had not early, because he was living in the Bronx at the time. And it was a long commute for him. So I had another drafting table, I'd lay paper out for him, and he would just paint over and over and over, and never complained, didn't say a peep. He'd move on to the next letter. Eventually, it got to the point where he would go from just a regular straight letter to a casual style, and then script. And I would give him old orders that were already done to lay out on his own and try to make, just so he had actual sign experience. And then I remember the first time I actually gave him an incoming job, real job, and instead
now he's got the pressure.
But he did a great job, and I let him keep all the money for the sign.
Nice,
So,
it's a good deal. And it's cool you tell this story, because it kind of makes me understand our relationship a little bit, because I knew how big of a commute he was making from the Bronx down to here, because he told me about it. He didn't tell me he was going to see you, but because when I first started getting into sign painting, I was 21, and I was making this big long commute. You know, taking the 20 bus from Yonkers down to the 4 train at Woodlawn to go all the way to Williamsburg, and then after that, once I finally started having a little more money, then cut the bus out. Let me just live in Inwood. My pops worked there for a minute, so I was already familiar. Okay. So, but even from there, you know, A train from 207 all the way.
It's a commute.
Yeah, and you got to really be committed, you know, because you gotta know every day. Like, I gotta be because I was working with some dudes who, if you were late, not only will they chew your ass out, but you probably aren't going to be learning anything for a while. So early is on time.
There's nothing that's my motto. Yeah. Actually, on time, you're late.
Yeah.
And
early.
I completely respect the school of thought or training where you need to be hard on your apprentice to weed out the people that don't want it as badly as badly.
The person who really does.
Yeah, because you know, I know in like the tattoo industry, like I've heard stories of people like scrubbing the floor with a toothbrush, you know, to prove that may be a little bit much. Not a little bit. It is. It's much, but. It's just, it wasn't the way that I was brought into it. So I don't think it's me as a person to try to weed somebody out like that. I think I'm a good judge of character. And he's the only person I've ever taught. So I've had people ask me since then, but it's a lot of work. And
so
you can't,
when you weed people out, would it be a situation where you kind of know from the beginning their potential?
No. Yes, but I think it's more of a personality thing. At the end of the day, you need to have artistic ability, but it's time on the tools.
Lots of time on the tools.
Lots of time on the tools.
You can't give it away to the wrong people either. So, because, you know, from what I notice, you know, not only is it a lot of effort to train people, but then the amount of effort that you put in to train this person, there's a certain point where you need them to start putting that same level of effort back into you. You know?
That absolutely.
So.
You're giving somebody a career. I never ever thought that sign painting would be the career for me.
That's good.
I stepped into it and I loved it. Didn't know that it was going to go on forever. I mean, fortunately I have, you know, it's still going. But I knew I loved it when early on. I remember, so I'd be practicing painting like a casual C. And it's in my head because in my dreams, I was actually doing this. I was doing the curve, pulling the brush up, like from a thick to a thin stroke, and then coming down. And there was one day where I hundreds, thousands of C's I had painted when I was in this shop learning. And I went home and in my sleep, I was dreaming of painting this letter C. And I liked it. So I knew right there that something was different about this new thing that I'm learning.
In your subconscious.
And it's funny because I recently found photos of some of the stuff I was painting in that era, and I thought it was great. And I look back and it's horrible. Like not even sellable worthy. And they were paid jobs for customers at the sign shop I worked for. It was like, oh, take this job, and you know you're learning on it, but it's a real sign, and we're selling it. And oh man, they were bad. But you got to start off bad.
Start somewhere. That's cool. So also, your quick signs, that was what it used to be. So was there ever a moment when you were worried about the future of sign paintings? Like not just for you personally, but just as an industry, as a trade, did you think it would fall off?
At one point, yes. All right, so when I started, I was the young kid and all sign painter. Everybody in the sign industry were all older guys. Guys in their 50s, 60s, 70s. So I remember there was a sign shop in Brooklyn called Monty Signs, who I think like people look at my style and can pretty much get, oh, Paid did that. This is how Monty Signs was for me. He had a specific style that he always did. He always used this kind of aqua green on a lot of his stuff.
Yeah.
And I would always see his work and kind of dissect how he did it because I loved it. So there was a sign supply company in Brooklyn called PK Supply. It was actually an art supply store that in the back had a whole sign supply section.
Okay.
So one day I'm in the back and I'm picking up some stuff, and one of the owners goes, "That's Monty." So he was his like probably 6'4", 70-year-old guy, white hair, and to me he was like he's like a sign god. Yeah. So I walk over to him and I was like, "You're Monty?" And he's I was like, "Hi, I'm Pete. I'm a sign painter." He goes, "You're not a sign painter. You're still wet behind the ears."
Oh, okay.
So I shook it off. Everybody that was standing around was laughing. I was wet behind the ears. I was a young kid. This is an old guy. So, didn't take offense to it. Just didn't need to use it to fuel me because I already had that fuel. I just wanted to get better. So, but it's just one of those little things that sticks out. But, all right, so I started seeing gradually that there were sign companies opening up that they weren't artists. They were people that just had money to buy a PC, a plotter, and they're putting signs out. The work was horrible. You can tell there's no design involved. There's nothing.
There's a certain level of love in the craftsmanship that's missing.
It was all missing. It was literally just like Helvetica and just. I mean, there's a place for Helvetica. There's a reason why it's there, but what I knew was artists are going to keep it going. At the time, I was a young guy, and then Matt was doing it. I didn't know that around the country, because there were people also my age that were getting involved in it, which is great. I just figured at the end of the day, the cream is going to rise to the top. So if you're in it just to pick up a plotter and knock out whatever you're going to do, fine. You're not going to last long. And if you do, great.
Of course.
But there's a market for different things. And I wound up having the opportunity to work for Department of Transportation. Where I was actually making highway signs, street signs.
So you fulfilled your mom's wish. When I had my sign shop, the wish was already fulfilled because now I had my own. It was a small business, but it was my own business, and I was doing well. So, but I had the opportunity to get a city job with pension and benefits and all that. A great safety net because a sign business in a small shop, it's seasonal. I'd have spurts where you really didn't do much all day, and then it would pick up. So I had both. I had my sign shop and I had my city job. Things wound up going south with my partner and I, and wound up closing up the sign shop. But when I was doing a lot of the work for the city, there was no creativity. Once a year, I would do in the street in front of Macy's Herald Square for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. We would get contracted to paint the logo directly in the street, which is kind of That's
like
legendary.
It's
you got the Rockettes dancing on your painting.
Exactly. I would videotape it every year. So, but I didn't have any artistic outlet for anything. Everything was literally just straight standard street signs. Once I wound up getting back into picking up a brush and started realizing there's a lot of other young sign painters going around. Will Van Zee, another young guy.
Fantastic.
I actually met him through Matt, and
I've painted with him a few times. That dude's got chops. He'll paint letters this big.
He's a talented guy.
Dude,
So
big shout, Will Van Zee and Monty as well. Thank you for inspiring some of the greats.
When I saw a young guy like Will that's as good as he is, I'm like, it's in good hands. I mean, I don't think I'm like at the end of my career. I think this is the beginning. I still got years left, But
you kept it alive, you know? There was that generation right there that made sure that you guys could all challenge vinyl